Grab your seats and welcome to the show. Welcome, everybody, and that's the new intro. We're here with JJKnight. Welcome to Inside the Biggles Bunker, the podcast where we talk about D&D. So, Jeremy, go ahead and tell us something about yourself.
Oh, shit, I don't know. We've known each other for, 10, 12 years now, probably?
Yeah, we met
somewhere around there.
Yeah, like 2010 or something. That sounds right.
Yeah. And then, that was probably 4 years ago now that I started running the game for you, Jason, and that little crew, the Encanto crew.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been playing on and off together for about that long. I know that guy too. Now I am up in South Dakota, which you had the pleasure of coming during the coldest time of the year.
Oh yeah, it was really
too
cold.
Long ago. Now it's beautiful and 70 out, and it's amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, it appears a little bit better for me. I run that Tuesday game, which I think is we're finding some traction. I'm kind of figuring out. To me, that game was more of a test to learn how to produce something like that, because I don't use StreamYard. So I've put a lot of time into designing that overlay and kind of creating a lot going on with that game.
I posted in the chat, that is your Twitch channel, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So Tuesday nights, what time? Let's say Eastern time.
I think I'm 8 o'clock Eastern, I think, right now, because I think they're 2 hours ahead.
All right. So 8 o'clock Eastern, this Twitch channel. He runs a
channel
Pathfinder game.
Yeah, we're running the Curse of the Crimson Throne adventure path, so it's fun. It's fun so far.
All right. So when did you start playing D&D?
When I was like 12 or 13.
All right. So what edition was that?
I started playing in 3.5.
All right.
Oh God, I'm getting follows. Sorry, because I have my Streamlabs up.
No worries.
Scared the shit out of me. But, I'm not live, but you get the notification.
Yeah.
So I was 12. It was Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, and it was kind of, I think 3.5 was only a couple years old at that point, because 3rd edition came out and ran for a while, and then they came out with 3.5, and pretty much what that was is what now, if you look at Pathfinder or even 5th edition, when they make their erratas and they change a bunch of rules, or this didn't work, so we did this instead, like re-edit everything. That's pretty much what 3.5 was. So I started playing that, and then 4th edition of Dungeons and Dragons came out, and we didn't like it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of switched to Pathfinder, which was kind of coming out around the same time, which a lot of old school people will call Dungeons and Dragons 3.75. Because it uses a lot of the base 3.5 rules, and then they just changed a handful of things.
All right. Can you explain, I know this wasn't on the list of questions, but can you explain 3.5, how it's different from 5E? Because most of the people that will watch this have only played 5E and only seen 5E.
So 5th edition is pretty much, I would say, any tabletop role-playing game is the easiest one to get into. They mainstreamed it. It makes a lot of sense. They got rid of a lot of the math, even though there is still some math in there, coming from versions of like 3 and 3.5, and even Pathfinder, where instead of advantage and disadvantage, it was like you get a -2 for this, but a +2 for this, -4 over here. They get a +2 to their armor class because they're doing this, and all of a sudden you're like, cool. There's like 80 things I got to keep track of. That's kind of what 5th edition has done probably the best out of most systems that I've seen, especially with high magic and high fantasy. There's some other ones out there that I've kind of played a little bit of. You have like Awakening, which is very magic based. It's like a resource pool. There's Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that. But 3.5 comes from a time when it was all about math. It was getting your numbers high, and the skills. There was 20 some odd skills in 3.5, and Pathfinder has even picked that up. And so there's, are you proficient in it? You get a bonus. How many ranks do you have in it? What's your ability score, stuff like that. So there's just a lot more math involved, and it can be intimidating when someone's like, okay, here's your character sheet, and then here's all the algebra you have to do to figure out how powerful your character is. And 5th edition has streamlined that pretty well. With either just taking, okay, here's like your standard rolls or your standard numbers, and you can just assign those. Point buy system has pretty much been the same since like 3.5. Values may have changed and costs may have changed, but for the most part, I think it's been pretty about the same. And then, of course, you can roll your dice and for that as well. I would say, biggest draws to a system like 3.5 or something like Pathfinder and even Pathfinder 2nd edition is the fact that there's a lot more ability to customize your character. Over the years, 5th edition has grown a lot, but it kind of depends on your archetype. They did very well with making a very broad list, and every archetype's a little bit different. But with Pathfinder, especially now that it's out for 10 years, every class has 15 archetypes, and there's 20, 25 classes, and multi-classing and stuff like that. So there's a lot you can do in terms of customizing how you want your character to play. So,
yeah, 5e I think just released a Strahd book where you can like have builds from like Strahd's like area.
Ravenloft campaign setting. That's actually one that I don't have a lot of 5th edition books. I have obviously Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, DMG, Curse of Strahd. I picked up the Salt Marsh. I picked up the Eberron one. And the Odyssey, the kind of Greek one. Those are really the only ones I was interested in. The Magic of the Gathering is really cool. I like how they incorporated that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's a weird system. And I like Xanthor's Guide. Tasha's, I don't know if I'll pick up because there's not really enough in it for someone who doesn't constantly play, or I will home rule something if I don't like it. And there's Tasha's has some cool spells and I think a couple cool archetypes, but that's about it for me wise. I'll just change rules as I see them fitting. Whatever we got going on.
So you started at 12. Do you remember anything about the campaign you guys were running or what kind of character you were using?
Oh, I remember my first character was a gnome wizard. And the reason I remember it is because I had 3 18s. I rolled 3 18s for stats.
Nice.
So he had an 18 dex, an 18 intelligence, and an 18 con. And in 3.5, wizards were a D4 for hit points. So, yeah, I had I was not quite the squishy mage wizard that most other 3.5 wizards were. The campaign, I don't remember a lot of. It wasn't great. It was, I think I was one of the reasons the DM who was running that one quit and left. I kind of remember just being like an asshole, and he was just like a friend of a friend who wound up in the people's group. It wasn't great, but I remember the character just because I remember a moment. I think probably one thing that stands out is one of our other players had a Goliath fighter barbarian, and I actually somehow had more hit points than him at one point. So, I remember the DM attacking me with we were like in hell or something. I'm sitting on a magic carpet, super fucking nerdy wizard. And he crits me and it's 100 points of damage. And I'm like, I'm still up. I mean, I've only got 5 hit points left, but I'm still up. And everybody's like, how the fuck are you alive right now? I'm like, well, I have 120 something hit points,
Nice.
So, yeah.
What's up, Jeremy Swigs? So Jeremy, what was your favorite campaign you've been in so far? So you've played a lot of D&D.
Yeah, I've played a bunch of different ones over the years. Favorite one that I've been in. Well, so I guess I'll give you two. So favorite one that I've ever finished was actually with before I moved back to Phoenix, was with the group that I play here in Rapid. I came in probably towards the last quarter to last third of the campaign, and I was playing an arcane archer. They had some home rule stuff, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna play something simple, and it wound up being the Kingmaker Pathfinder Adventure Path. Obviously, was somewhat revolved around the book. They had 2 full party wipes, so a lot of things of the world had been different at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that was a lot of fun. There was, my guy came in and they didn't really have any ranged, so it was nice to be a character that was needed in the group. And then since I had a little bit of magic, I made some pretty funny calls, and I just brought something that the group needed. And there were a few times, there were 2 fights that if I wasn't there, they would have died. So that was kind of cool. And then the way that campaign ended was just real nice, kind of epilogue, and it was just a fun little end of the campaign. And the other one was more of, this is probably my favorite character I've ever played more than campaign, because I didn't finish the campaign.
Okay.
Just coming out of high school, and I played a psionic character, so a lot of mind power, and we kind of took the horror and nightmare and kind of insanity rules out of Call of Cthulhu and changed them a bit. And the events that I retired that character. I think I played that character for 6 or 7 sessions and was like, really, this character would not adventure with you people anymore. So I had my mind blow up and get put back together, and then I basically got impregnated and had alien kind of thing come out of my stomach. And there were a couple other small things that happened too. And I was like, no, this character goes into the mountains and is now a hermit, because he's like, I don't know what, every time I adventure with you people, something horrific happens to me. And my mind has to be manipulated. So that was a fun one.
And they turned the Kingmaker into a game, correct?
Yeah, the Pathfinder Kingmaker game is based off the Adventure Path, which I don't know if you could still buy it, but there is a 5th edition converted compendium for it. So you could play Kingmaker in 5th edition and not have to spend the ungodly amount of hours converting it yourself. Because I don't remember if it was with the game or it was a separate company who also did a Kickstarter for that, which I thought was pretty cool.
The game is definitely awesome. If anybody wants to try it, I recommend it. Just know, when you're building a rogue, you need strength to attack for your attack damage. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Pathfinder 3.5. You can get it. Well, there are ways to do it, but it's a little bit higher level. But yeah, for the most part, any damaging ability goes off of strength, or you add your strength to, instead of where 5th edition allows you to add your dex.
All right. So now that I brought up that video game, do you have a favorite style video game? D&D or Pathfinder?
What do you mean?
So Baldur's Gate, Pathfinder Kingmaker, Neverwinter Nights.
Oh, the old Neverwinter Nights is great. I like them all. I like that genre and that style of video game in general. So I don't think I have a favorite. I think that the Pathfinder game, the Kingmaker, definitely is more difficult than Baldur's Gate 3, just because of how the turns, I know that now you can kind of do it turn based and there's an option for it, but that live action having to control everybody at once and spells and that gets intense. Having basically your guys attack, do something, you click spacebar to pause, you figure out everybody else's next shit, or if it doesn't work, you will hopefully save before you enter the room and can buff yourselves appropriately.
Entertain the people real quick. I got to say goodbye.
Okie dokie. Hi guys.
Goodbye.
Oh, so how's everybody's Easter's going so far? I'm gonna probably go to food coma here shortly.
No.
I got some cookies downstairs though that sound pretty good. All
right, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Back. There we go.
All right. Okay, so we were talking about video games and how Pathfinder is crazy, but a lot of fun.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and Baldur's Gate 3. You know what? Like I haven't played it in so long. I just want them to put out, like, even if they did it act by act, every couple months they put a new act out to be freaking fine.
Yeah, there's a new game called Solastar or something like that, and it's really, really close to 5e. It's more based on 5e than Baldur's Gate, right?
Okay.
So I really like it, and they just added a dungeon maker. So I'm thinking of using the dungeon maker in there, screenshotting it, updating it to Roll20, and using it on Roll20. Be like, I just made this sick ass dungeon. But I have to figure out how to do Roll20 because Skizzles didn't play last Wednesday. So I was going to run a one shot and I couldn't get Roll20 to switch pages. I couldn't figure it out. I never used it.
You gotta drag the ribbon.
Oh,
for the players, you gotta drag the player ribbon over.
Yeah. So I didn't know how to do any of that.
You know, we have this really amazing tool. It's called YouTube or Google. You know, if you type in your question, you'll probably get a video.
I did, and I tried that, and I didn't get it to work. So I was dragging the ribbon, but it wasn't changing the page. So I must have been dragging the wrong ribbon. So you like to DM, correct?
Yeah.
Do you prefer playing as a player or playing as a DM?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I like both, really. I think it's nice to be able to be a player from time to time, but because I'm a DM, I guess I hold games to a higher standard when I'm a player, a little bit, and so I don't know. I mean, I will probably DM more in my life than I will be a player, and I'm totally cool with that. But I like to, not have the 800 monsters I have to control and all that stuff from time. It's relaxing being a player, being able to, mess up the DM's moments or something like that.
So how long have you been DMing?
I mean, when I was younger, I definitely like full campaigns. I really only have probably done one or two, like to completion. But over the course of, my almost 20 years of playing, I've probably DM'd 20 or 30 between one shots and regular games and stuff like that. I don't know. So, it's a good mixture of both. I probably didn't start DMing stuff till I was 16 or 17. So there was a good 3 or 4 years where I didn't even really think about it. So
from your campaigns in the past, and you're DMing, do you have a favorite character that you've met? Like Jason's old guy who lost all his powers and had to relearn and was an old grandpa to one of our other characters, or Eric's character who was I'm going to break down the door and could never break down a door.
I don't really think I've ever had a favorite character. I mean, if I have a favorite character, it's probably the NPCs that I've made up, for reoccurring characters and things like that. I like when we can kind of build a character and they have a weird quirk. It just Eric not being able to kick down doors, shit like that, or people always missing, guiding bolt always misses, stuff like that's just fun and funny. I think that just creates a fun environment.
All right. So how do you come up with your campaign ideas when you homebrew?
Inspiration from books, movies, stuff like that. I think that you should always be pulling inspiration from whatever you like. The world that I'm working on now, which will eventually be the world that I probably do a couple campaigns in,
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of inspiration from books that I've read just because I like, parts of it. My history is, I went live the other day and I kind of did like a basic timeline up to kind of current decade type thing. And it started off with, the year zero is light and dark manifest powers. They create celestials. Celestials create gods. Those gods create servants, who would in fact be the dragons, and other long-lived races. And then, the dragons start experimenting with magic. Things go awry, and all of a sudden, your world is populated with beings from all over the multiverse, kind of thing. And that's kind of how this homebrew world that I'm working on was kind of created. And that draws some of the details of that will draw upon an author that I like, that his world, the creatures that originated on the planet were what they were called dragon riders and could control dragons, and they were basically gods because there wasn't many of them, and they created a lot of the races and stuff of the world. So I'll draw some inspiration from that.
Is that Dragonlance?
No, no.
Oh.
Probably similar though to Dragonlance. And things like Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms. There's a lot of source material in the Forgotten Realms that Wizards of the Coast hasn't touched on. I mean, I remember I had a character who was an alchemist. It was a prestige class out of a 3.5 D&D book, Forgotten Realms book. I was just pumping out potions all the time. The resource material that was back in the 90s was so much greater than what we get now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of old school gamers, that's kind of their gripe, is that we don't get a campaign setting. We get a couple small books.
Yeah, one of my friends that DMs for like other groups of my other friends, he only plays 3.5, so they have to learn all the 3.5 stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So do you use any tools? Like, I think I saw that you had Campfire on your computer, right? So
I have Campfire. I like World Anvil a little bit more. Campfire, I was just used the free demo and I didn't really like it. I'm liking World Anvil a little bit more. And then I use OneNote, Microsoft's OneNote, just because it's really easy to tab in and out of things. When I'm running a game, I can have OneNote take up a little chunk of the screen and just tab through everybody's stuff if I need to look at it. Incarnate is what I use for when I'm building maps, and you can build everything from battle maps to world maps now with it. So that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I've tried probably a dozen different map building or making tools, and I'll probably stick to Roll20. There's a lot of people who are using like Foundry, VTT, or Fantasy Grounds, and things like that. But for me, the immersion is being at a dinner table, because that's how I started.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the big leather map that you roll out, and you kind of draw shit on it, and that's your battle map. So Roll20 feels like that kind of to me. I feel a little bit more like how you played old school if you're using a map, because Foundry sometimes just feels too much like a video game, and it's not. That's why Fourth Edition didn't do as well, because they went like a weird video game route with it. So
yeah, that's what most of the Neverwinter Nights 2 4E. So it makes sense that those were the video game ones.
Yeah.
So do you prefer home brewing or modules?
I guess it kind of depends. I have a few adventure paths for Pathfinder that I want to run. I think that if you can't dedicate time to home brewing, then a module is great because it has all the information you need, and it allows, like the Crimson Throne one I'm running, it allows me the prep time that I probably would prep for a completely homebrew game, I can then take and invest into the characters. So I have notes on, character plots that are going to be coming up, and things like that I've put, a couple hours of prep time into versus those, where they might only get a little bit of time of my invested time to prep things or create up stories if I was doing it completely homebrewed, because I'd have to create, wherever they're going next or whatever is happening next completely myself, versus where a module I could just kind of flip through and say, okay, these are the monsters, this is the big bad guy, I know the layout of the dungeon, that's cool, I can set that up in 20 minutes on Roll20, and then I can focus on, maybe just adding stuff to make the game fit how our campaign is playing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in one of our campaigns, the one where I was Silvar and you made a world, and we had to build our own fortress, or we started setting up our own fortress before you moved back to South Dakota. That campaign had your own combat system, your homebrewed combat system. Can you explain what that was and why you did that?
That kind of stems from the group I used to play with here. Some of that came from them. And combat can be boring for the other players. And I feel like that made it so that every turn, or, if I'm doing something or something's happening, you're just constantly rolling dice through combat, because it was a roll versus roll. We had a dodge parry instead of an armor class. Armor kind of gave you an absorption of damage instead. And there were just some kind of slightly different things into combat. And it made it, in my opinion, more fun, because it kind of was very, very much unknown. Because in 5th edition, you really have to... My biggest gripe is that there's no creature that has really higher than a 20 armor class. It's like, that's ridiculous. So by 5th level, when players have a +8, +9 to hit, they've got a 70% chance, 60% chance to hit every time. And that just gets boring when your player's like, oh, I rolled over a 10, I probably hit, shit like that's boring. So this, I think, just gave it a little bit more of a unknown. Combat's a little bit more dangerous because you don't know if they're going to hit or not. You can't rely on, I am going to buff my armor class up to 25, and I know they're never going to hit. So.
Yeah, we have one character in our campaign who has a 26 armor class. So he's like, haha, you didn't hit me. You didn't hit me, right? So he only gets hit on saving throws. But I remember in that campaign, I rolled against you. I rolled a 2, and I was like, shit, and you rolled a nat 1. And I was like, yeah, I hit on with a 2.
And that's what I mean.
It was so
like
exciting. It was so exciting to hit with a 2. You're like, I rolled a 2. Yeah. So it was a lot more fun. So how do you prepare your sessions when you DM?
Well, I guess it kind of depends. So on Roll20, obviously I just make sure that whatever battle maps I need are going to be, the tokens, the characters, all that stuff is kind of ready to go, or I have easy access for it. Basically, one monitor has Roll20 and another monitor has everything else I'm going to use. It's I need 3 monitors when I DM, so one can have all my stream stuff, one can have Roll20, and then one can have all my notes and open windows and shit like that. But then at an actual table, it's the same thing. I have my notes, I have my enemies I'm going to use, stuff like that. And then I will also just have, I don't know, notes, just as many notes as I could possibly have with me on whatever might happen. That's pretty much how I do it. I don't do a lot of prep versus some dungeon masters that do a lot of prep, because I don't know what's going to happen. I have here's where we're starting at point A, and hopefully maybe the characters get to point B, and here are kind of the things that I think of right now that could get them to point B. But if something else happens, I might have to, manipulate based on their actions, how they can get there.
All right. Pay attention to that, Skizzles. Notes. One note. Put it up in your computer. Use it. Don't be like, oh, I lost all my stuff again. Don't do that. Don't do that, Skizzles. All right. So about how long does that usually take you to do?
So it depends. I would say I've invested a little bit more time into the Curse of the Crimson Throne game that I've been playing on Tuesdays. Last week, I spent probably 2 or 3 hours kind of writing notes on plot points for all my characters. And, it could take me anywhere between half an hour to 45 minutes to set up, like with dynamic lighting in Roll20, a map because I'm pretty quick at it now. I do mess up a little bit with some of how the tokens react to lighting, but I generally can figure out where I went wrong pretty quickly. So not too long. I'd probably say during a given week, I'll probably spend 3 to 4 hours prep just because I have the module. So that takes a lot of it out of it. I can just read through and say, okay, where are the next kind of things going? And what do I need to know about these people? And then I can kind of just connect from them the points to my characters.
All right. So metagaming, can you explain that real quick so I can ask this next question?
Yeah, metagaming is taking your personal knowledge and implying that your character knows it. Or for instance, a round of combat is 6 seconds. When I don't mind when the group kind of talks because we're playing a game together, but there is a point where I will say, okay, no more talking. Now you have to decide what you want to do. So a lot of it is, the voices inside your head, so to speak. And yeah, just using personal knowledge and implying that your character automatically knows that and stuff like that.
So in the first campaign that we played together that you DM'd for, we had a lot of people in that group that like to metagame. Do you tend to punish players that metagame during the game?
Yes and no. I think that everybody does it. And everybody's going to play a little bit differently, but just kind of reiterating that, hey, your character might not make that decision because might not know that information. And, I would say an indirect punishment more than a direct punishment is probably the best way to go with something like that because it's going to happen. There's always, what is kind of known as the rules lawyer who is going to, oh, well, it doesn't work like that. Or, the book says yada, yada, yada. And it's not, it would be taking away their fun if you were just like, well, now that you said that, I'm going to bomb you or, your character dies now. It's not really fair to them. So just kind of learning how to work around that and, make sure that the players know that there are repercussions, but it might be, well, enough talking. You make your decision now. Nobody else gets to talk. If that goes on long enough. So,
yeah. In the campaign we play on Wednesday, my character's dumb as rocks, right? Because he's like an 8 intelligence, and we always have all these riddles. And I'll be like, "Oh, I know this riddle." I'll be like, "Ooh, shiny color," and like I'll just like throw my character off on like something stupid, and I won't like say it. And then like if no one gets it, I'll in the private chat I'll be like, "Hey, it's this." Just kind of like be like, "Hey, I know what it is, but my character doesn't," or I'll be like, "Sounds like sky," like just something stupid like that because I don't want to be like, "Hey, I actually know this riddle, but I can't say it." Right? Okay, so metagaming bad, and you might die for it in the future. Just not at that very moment. All right. So, do you have any cool D&D stories?
I don't know. I think I've told you a few of those ones there. So the game I play, in real life, is a pirates game, and it's Skulls and Shackles, which is another Pathfinder adventure path. And that one has had some pretty funny moments. We have a very interesting motley crew of sailors or pirates. The captain is a kitsune, so he's a fox person. The bard is a cat folk, so a cat lady, and then we have 2 rat folk. We have like 1 human barbarian, and then we have a gripply, which is a frog person. So we just have like creature pirates. And very early on, this was actually before I took over as the dungeon master for that one. The one rat folk is a witch, and they have this spell that you can implant a memory into somebody's mind, and it's like a first level spell. And he did it. The idea of that game is pretty much you've been shanghaied, and you're on a boat now. You're pirates, and the captain's kind of an asshole. And we almost got our little group caught and probably would have been keelhauled or killed, but he implanted the memory of one of the other sailors that we didn't like doing the thing that we did, and that guy got keelhauled instead.
Nice.
But the dungeon master at the time didn't even know what to do. Like, he was like, "Cool, I'm taking a smoke break." Like, after he cast the spell and told him what the spell did, and he was like, "I don't know what to do." It was pretty funny.
That's a good one. So since you said there's a bunch of creatures in that campaign, what's your favorite race in D&D and 5e and then Pathfinder?
That's a tough one. Pathfinder, I tend towards humans. You get an extra feat. There's benefit to that. Pathfinder, which is very a feat heavy game. 5th edition though, that's tough, I guess. I don't like the really animalistic races, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them for some stuff, I guess, if you're trying to go for like a OP build or something, min-max build or something like that. But I stick towards more of the humanoid. I'd say I probably play half elf the most, or human again. I think it just kind of depends on what kind of character I want to play. I wouldn't say I have a favorite, because I would, if there's a race that fits the character I'm going for, I'll definitely play that. I mean, I think one of my favorite characters was my dwarf storm cleric, who never got hit, was always missed in combat, so I never got to do the Wrath of the Righteous rebuke thing ever. And it was kind of like this point of anger between my character, because he can never use any of his abilities because nobody would ever hit me.
That's awesome. So you brought up min-maxing. Do you min-max when you build your characters, or do you build out the character you want and then you build it?
I mean, I am not a true min-maxer. I'm not going to multi-class because this class will give me this thing, which will do this thing. But when I am building something, I want it to be strong. So I make sure that, I don't have a useless character, but I make sure that I'm going to have fun, and that I'm not going to break somebody's game because, my character can cast all kinds of crazy things, later on, or have some one-time shot 400 points of damage spell type thing.
Mm-hmm.
If it so happens that my character can get 26 armor class, sure, why not? But if you're like, my character is gonna just always have the highest armor class ever, I don't really go into the game thinking about that.
My character gets hit all the time, but I'm a barbarian, so I'm just like, rage, half damage. And I played the animal one and got bear, so only psychic damage hurts me full. So I'm just like, haha. All right, favorite class?
Oh, again, tough question. Probably spellcaster of some kind. I like the sorcerer wizard. I'd say in 5th edition, warlock's probably my favorite. Pathfinder, I tend towards sorcerers probably more if I'm going to do a spellcaster. So,
yeah, I always want to play a spellcaster, but I'm always like, at the end, I'm like, barbarian, let's go. Play barbarian, got to smash. All right, so what do you think is the best part about D&D?
It's just the storytelling, every time you sit at the table with your friends, it's going to be something else happens, and if you look over the past 5 years, pretty much since 5th edition came out, that it's been such an overhaul of the nerdum, so to speak, has kind of been brought to the forefront. I think that it brings people together. And in the sense it also tears people apart. I don't know if you ever followed the Twitter thing on the combat wheelchair.
Oh yeah, I thought that was special, to say the
You
least.
know what? If someone wanted to do it in my campaign, sure. I don't, but I'm not going to. Uh, and I would do it for anybody really. I'm not going to make that character have an easier time because they chose to be in a combat wheelchair. If they're going over difficult terrain, that sucks. That's going to probably hinder them. You know, uh, I remember a big argument. People were like, "There's no ramps in D&D," and it's like, well, there were ramps. The wheelchair's been around forever. It's been
Mm-hmm.
around a very long time, so there could be, but it's probably not common. Even nowadays, it's not very common to have ramps going into buildings,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was an interesting Twitter feed and argument to watch happen. But I'd allow someone to play in the game. I can't tell them that. I could probably be like, hey man, like I don't know, what are you trying to get out of this character? Because everybody builds a character for different reasons, and when I am getting people to play, I'm very much like, this is the type of campaign I'm playing. If you want to have fun, build a character that fits the setting. If I was wanting the character fit, sure, man, do it, play it. If the character wasn't going to fit, I'd be like, you sure? I don't know if you're going to have fun with that character because that's not the kind of campaign that I'm setting up. So I see both arguments to that. But.
Yeah, like when I was like, I want him to be under 18. You're like, well, then he's not going to be proficient, but he'll have more dex and he'll have less strength. So you have to take these. And I was like, he just turned 18. Maybe I should make like a wheelchaired barbarian and be like, oh, he can only use his legs when he rages. So
Right.
he's like, there's like rocks everywhere, and he's like, I have to get over these rocks. I'm going to use rage and run over him with my wheelchair, above my head.
Bunch of disadvantaged athletics checks.
Make a strength check, please.
Yeah.
Well, I'm raging, so I have an advantage. Double nat once. What? You fall on your face and more rocks fall down and you die. No.
No, I mean I'm not against stuff like that. It's funny when people argue about their own games, and it's like, dude, it's play how you freaking want to play. Like it literally says it in any role-playing game that you pick up. Within the first couple pages, it's going to say, understand this is a reference point for your game. If it's fun, do it. Like if it makes sense and it's fun and everybody's cool with it, doesn't break immersion for anybody at your table, do whatever you want. I changed rules all the time. Why? Because I was like, I don't like how this rule is written, and it doesn't go with how we're playing. That's why I made that combat system that we played for a little while.
Mm-hmm. That was a lot of fun.
Combat wheelchair with rocket launchers on it. Heck yeah. A little like World of Warcraft goblin boots.
Oh, yeah.
Launch yourself up.
Woo! That was fun. Playing a warrior with that, people could not get away with you. And you were small and you had a big weapon. It was great. I loved it. So was there any campaigns that you played that you wish kept going? Besides that one that we were playing where it was all home brewed and I was a pirate, because that was amazing.
When I was younger, I wish because I didn't play for a little while just because Elecanto, and we played on Saturday nights, so like I just couldn't. I wish I would have been involved in that one when I was younger, to kind of the end of that campaign. But no, I think that every game that I've played that we've tried to end it on some sort of story note of some kind. So, it wasn't like we left something completely open. I think the only one really was, the last one that I ran for you guys in Arizona. But I think we even tried to end that a little bit too, kind of like a little bit of an ending story. But, it is what it is. Maybe we'll get back or something like that. Or maybe if I come into town and everybody's available, we'll do like a D&D night or something like that.
That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. So Is Wallace going to make a reappearance in Balthera? Because right now he's touring the world, making money.
If I ever think that my schedule, I write the schedule for my work, so I probably could do something about it. But
Give
I don't know,
yourself a
maybe
Wednesday off.
we'll see. I mean, the way things are going, I've been working a lot of Tuesday mornings, so I might have to change, stuff like that too. But we'll see. Maybe.
All right. So we have someone who's might not be in the chat right now, but will definitely rewatch the video. He is working on his first D&D campaign because he would like to be a DM. What tips do you have for a new DM?
Yeah, don't take notes, prepare, but I wouldn't be like held down to what the stuff you've prepared, because your players will always go the opposite direction to which you say the shiny thing is at.
Shiny thing.
Just have fun. That's the biggest thing. Talk with your players. That's always important too, because if somebody is doing something you don't like, you just got to tell them. You got to be able to communicate. You are, as much as this is a game, you're also, kind of a manager of people, and they're fun too. So that's probably one of the biggest things. If it's your first time DMing, I always recommend pre-written stuff. You want to have your own world? Perfect. That's fine. With writing a town or anything like that, you don't have to do too much. Pick a couple points of interest, write some notes on some people of interest, have a fantasy name generator, or have a list of 50 names that you can kind of scratch off as they meet people. But pre-written adventures are designed to teach you how to run a Dungeons and Dragons game. And there's free ones online. You have the DM's Guild is a huge resource, and you can probably get, if you're going first level, you can get some first level adventures that'll probably run you 2 to 3 sessions worth, depending on how big they are. And it'll have everything in it that you need to know, and it'll help you, to be a reference for you to go back and write your own later on. So that's probably my biggest word of advice is to, just some pre-written modules that are short adventures, and to go from there.
So do you have a good starting module, you would say?
Honestly, the Lost Mines of Phandalin is a great starting module. It kind of includes everything. You go from fighting one type of creature to another type of creature and bouncing around, and kind of has some traveling and stuff like that all over the place. But most first level adventures are designed to bring the party together. So they all do a pretty good job of that.
All right. So here's the first question from the chat. It says, what are your favorite spells?
Ooh, my favorite spells. I think Fireball is definitely in top 5, just because it's kind of the most. Yeah. Disintegrate. I don't know if it's in 5th edition, but 3.5 and Pathfinder have a spell called Disintegrate that if there's 2 saves involved, or it's basically insta-death. First one is a fortitude save against the actual spell, and then there's a reflex save, I think, or a reflex fort save, but there's a combination of the two, and you literally disintegrate somebody if they fail both saves. Or if you don't, it's like your caster level times d6 in damage. It's a lot of damage. Those are fun ones. It's an old 3.5 spell that's very broken called Commune with Nature. It's a Druid spell. You put your hand to the ground, and everything, all the creatures, plants, landscape, terrain, anything like that in a 1 mile cubic radius. And I've used that spell a few times when I had an old gnome Hydrophant. So he was an arcane druid. He had wizard and druid spells.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and we had to find a sunken ship, and I pretty much just water walked, put my hand on the water, and sent out. It's basically a sonar, and I was like, "There's the ship." They're like, "How do you know?" I was like, "That's the only spot in this area that I don't know what it is." Yeah, the DM was like, "God damn it, your character's so overpowered," and I was like, "That's not my fault for allowing me to play."
All right.
Yeah.
So here's another question: when are you going to show up in the campaign?
Well, we just kind of went over that. Eventually, if I can maybe work my schedule to allow me to show up Wednesdays again.
Okay. Yeah. I thought that was funny because I just asked you that like 2 minutes ago. So what is the strangest character you've seen while you were a DM?
Oh, Strangest while I was DM.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen too many strange characters while DMing. Again, I'm a DM who up front in the game, I generally turn away the anime weeb people because I pretty much say, like, if I'm doing a Roll20 game and it's randos that I don't know, I pretty much put a disclaimer that I'm like, no anime bullshit. Characters that I've played with, I played in this one campaign for literally 2 days. Me and the DM got along really well. It was a Roll21. Me and him were chit-chatting. He's like, oh my God, I could totally use a player like you. These guys are kind of out of control. And I played 2 sessions, and I was like, bro, you just need to find a new group. Because, dude, we played for 3 hours, and the one girl was like, I find all the orphans in the city, and I buy a house. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, he just told us we have 3 days to figure out what the hell's going on, and you spend it buying a house.
Fighting orphans.
Yeah, just stupid shit like that. And I'm like, and
you know, I would have been like, I set that house on fire.
Yeah, it's like, good Lord. And so, basically I was the only person like doing anything to progress the story. But yeah, no, I would say the most annoying people to play with to kind of go on the weird is the people who are like, my character's an anime character. You're like, God damn it, why? I'm all cool with like you trying to make Goku. I can make Goku in 5th edition. Pretty easy. But like I don't know. The anime weed people can be a little much sometimes to play with. Just because their characters tend to be not wanting to follow the story. Yeah, I was playing a good character, so I wasn't just gonna burn the house down.
So do you have your a favorite kind of podcast or D&D show that you watch?
So I'm wearing the shirt for one, Glass Cannon. God, these are probably the first big podcasts that I've listened to for D&D. They're Pathfinder guys. They've been doing a lot of one shots of different tabletops through COVID and the quarantine because they're based out of New York.
Mm-hmm.
But they just got back to recording their original Glass Cannon series, which is the Giant Slayer Adventure Path in Pathfinder, which is really cool. They're on the last book. They're on book 6. And it's, that when you get to 15th, 16th level play, especially in Pathfinder, you have maybe 2 rounds of combat, and they're dead or you're dead. Mm-hmm. Because, these creatures have a plus 25 to hit. And, yeah, especially with what they're doing, they're all giants. It's called Giant Slayer. The last book is your cloud giants, which are your biggest, baddest giants. Mm-hmm. Who, if they have their full 3 or 4 full action attack, they're doing 200-300 points of damage in 1 round.
Damn.
So they've made a progress of like 700 feet into like the cloud castle they're in, because every time there's a combat or every time there's a corner, they're like, we need to peek around this corner from 50 feet away. Mm-hmm. They're like, we cannot be surprised by combat or we die.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the fun thing I think that 5th edition kind of missed the mark on. Because when you guys went up against Strahd, that combat didn't last long. And, I played Strahd out of the book, and you were supposed to go up to him, in a couple more levels. So it's like, it just.
Well, we also had a giant dragon too, so.
Yeah, but even then, the way that it's just, I don't think fifth edition is very balanced on a high end play, which is fine. It just means the DM has to do a little bit more work on their end. But it's not as scary as Pathfinder. You know, high end play Pathfinder characters, a wizard, sorcerer, one shot, easy. And so your wizards and sorcerers are like, I need to not die. And I think that, you know, that's scary, you know, when you're at high levels. So
All right. So this question gets asked every single time. If you had to choose a way for one of your characters to die, how would you want them to go down?
Hmm. I mean, in a blaze of glory, I guess. You know, I guess it would depend on the character. You know, if it was like Wallace per se, that a couple people in chat are kind of familiar with. Yeah, my bard for the Wednesday night game that I played for a little bit. It would definitely, he would die because he got caught, and it would be like, you know, a no-win scenario. You know, he would do everything he could, but there's a point where, you know, it'd be the whole Han Solo, "I love you, I know" kind of moment. You know, he just look back at the party, just tip his hat, and that's it.
All right, so here's another question. I don't know if it's D&D related. Is there a necromancer in Pathfinder?
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, so this is based for a Pathfinder question. Do necromancers bring people back from the dead, or are they just really late healers?
So I can't remember if it's 5th edition or Pathfinder, but there's basically a like really late healer build, and it is a necromancer. So they don't really bring people. They don't really do either, you know, because they're not bringing people back unless they're summoning high level undead. They are just reanimating the body and giving it a purpose. But there is, I think it's Pathfinder. It might be like a weird third party thing that's like reverse healing. And it's like this goofy, it's really weird. It's really goofy. And I remember it just being like, yeah, you're a necromancer, but you bring people back, but they're not really zombies, but they're themselves. Like they're intelligent, but they like slowly decay. Their bodies are decay. So that's a funny one. But I would say neither of those. They don't bring people back, or are they really late healers? Most of the time, they're just like, you know, I liked it. It's almost necrophilia, to be honest with you. It's borderline.
I don't think you could say that. I don't think you could say that on YouTube, but oh well. I'm not monetized.
We're not talking about a real person.
All right. So are there any other questions? Any questions at all, chat? Because we are going to wind this down.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Ba, ba, ba. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. So as they think of one, Vinny wants to, or not Vinny, Hoboken wants to know, same person, but when?
That's my answer.
All right, Jeremy.
In the future.
In the future. All right. Do you want to promote anything, like say anything out? I will put your Twitch in the chat again.
Yeah. You know, twitch.tv/JJKnight7. Primarily what I'm on. Definitely Tuesdays for sure. We've missed a couple, but most of the time, Tuesday nights, we're doing Curse of Crimson Throne. And I try to jump on. I'm trying to kind of get a schedule going for myself, but it's been a little wacky at work. I'd like to do either a couple nights and a couple kind of day streams. So we'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, and we're going to end it on this question. If you and Biggles had to make characters and then fight each other, how do you think that would go?
I don't know. I think it would come down to dice rolls, really. It's hard to say.
What character would you use? And what character do you think I would use?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of really good combinations out there. I built one not too long ago. I can't remember what I made, but it was really fun, and that would have been a neat one. I'd probably go spellcaster of some kind. Maybe Eldritch Knight.
Nice. And of course, I'd go barbarian and try to face you. Yeah. All right. All right. That is all the time we have for today. Thank you, everybody, and have a great one.